It's all about technique and pressure. You want to put about 25 to 30 pounds of pressure when you're pushing or pulling the screen. And just like riding a skateboard, everybody has like their own style preferred. Some people like pulling, some people like pushing. It just depends on the individual and what feels comfortable. And again, if we're pulling, which most people will be pulling because they'll use bench hooks, then you're just gonna pull back. And make sure that your squeegee is down and about like a 45-degree angle. And so you're using the hard edge, this hard edge of the squeegee. You're using that to pull back all the ink. Again, I usually try to do 3 to make sure I got full coverage, and down and pulling the table back as far as I can. And you can even hear that screen when it just clears out the whole image. And there we go. So now we're going to coat our screen with the photo emulsion. All right, and again, Speedball has their version. It comes in a kit, so you can get the emulsion here. It's already packaged for you. It comes with the activator. It's important to have either a scoop coater or a clean squeegee when applying your emulsion. And when using your scoop coater, always make sure your edges are clear. The inside doesn't have any water or any chemicals left over in it. This is a really crucial part. All right, so after you take off the cover of your scoop coater, you can place it straight down. And then we'll open our emulsion. Again, a little fluorescent lighting isn't gonna hurt anything. A lot of exposure to fluorescent lighting could, and direct sunlight absolutely will. And again, it comes in a variety of colors, pinks, blues, purples. What I like to do is stir up my emulsion, just because the chemicals tend to separate and sit on the bottom. So each time I like to just stir it like, any kind of paint. And again, please, please, please wear rubber gloves when using photo emulsion. It's a very harsh chemical, so open air is important. So after we have our scoop coater, try to keep it as level as possible, or just keep it flat. And we're gonna put a small 1-inch bead across. So when using the scoop coater, it's important for hand placement. And there's 2 sides. There's a very thick side and a thin side. I typically use the thinner side, so I don't have to use as much of the chemical. What's really important is finger placement. So notice my fingers aren't here to where when I stroke up, it's gonna smear. They're tucked behind this guard, hanging onto the base, and my thumb is tucked back. And so again, we have about a 45-degree angle. Place it flush, and then we're gonna roll it forward. So notice the emulsion's already wanting to roll, and 1 fast movement. And these blue guards here are gonna protect it from spilling, and they'll also catch it on the sides, and you'll see what I'm talking about right here. So we're rolling forward. Notice the guards have caught everything. Now I'm looking to make sure there's an even bead across the bottom, so we have a good pull. And with the same pressure, I'm pushing in. These screens are pretty resilient. Now I'm just pulling straight up. And notice that sound. And I tilt back. Notice everything's falling back. Scrape up. And we have a nice clean coat. So I do one side, and I do the inside. So again, 45-degree angle, hold it steady, let it pull, get pushing in, good pressure. And then we're gonna scrape up and pull. We're gonna let the leftover pull back, shift, and there we are. And there's our screen. So when storing your screens, you want to make sure there's the least amount of light exposure or light pollution, light exposure as possible. So having a heavy blackout cloth to prevent any kind of light exposure, since photo emulsion is a light sensitive material, too much light exposure will ruin your screen. So after you coat it, you want to make sure there's no residual emulsion dripping on to bottom screens or anything like that. So storage is important. You want to be in a dry place and a dark place. And here we have transparencies. This is what we'll use to put our image to transfer onto the screen. And you can get these at any office supply store, Office Max, Office Depot. Some people will refer to them as overhead projection papers, as long as they're transparent, as you can see. So when making your image, you have to be aware that what is going to be black is what is going to be printed. So P for print, positive, N for negative, not print. So the black is what's going to be blocking out the light, and we'll get back to that whenever we get to burning your screen. So everything black is going to wash out. For instance, if I decided I wanted to do this, then everything black would wash out. I'd have a black circle with white text, white image. If I wanted just the black and the black circle, then that's going to come out. So we're going to print both. That way we can see the difference. So we're scaled to fit the size we wanted, and then we'll print. Heavyweight paper, go with best, print. This is 8.5 by 11, size of paper. That's a great size for any tote bags or t-shirts. After you've coated your screen and let it dry, then we're gonna test our emulsion out with our light box. So this is where our T-square comes in handy. So you can place it there, and then we can just kind of use it as a guide to where we're gonna place our screen, our image. So let's see, our screen is 18 inches wide, so we'll split the difference. We'll just put it right at 9 inches is where we'll put our image at for our center. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect just yet. And then you put the T-square at the top of the screen or at the bottom, wherever you can get most coverage. So we'll go for the bottom and make sure that it aligns with our T-square to get us as straight as possible. So now that it's straight and flush, grab some tape. And we're gonna tack it down. 1, 2, and 3. I would advise to keep the tape as far away from your image as possible, because when you go to clean your screen, the emulsion may wash out from where the tape was and get back into your screen. So first we'll get our fabric, and we'll put that down. Then we'll get our cardboard or a flat surface. And then we're gonna get our weight. And we'll set our timer for 3 minutes. So we'll come into our sink area here, and understand not everybody has access to pressure washers, so we're just gonna use the sink. And you can already see the image coming out. Notice I'm going in a circular motion, not too direct. You can also do little X's, like X here, X there. Because if you put too much pressure on one side, you'll have inconsistency. And you can see we have a little ways to go, but now we're able to see inside of our screen. And I always like to rotate the screen so you're not putting too much pressure on one side. A little bit more water here, not too much. And when you're doing it with a sink, you don't want to put too much pressure, too much water, because you will get some streaking. So I'm just kind of going lightly, not too much pressure, circular motions. There we are. There's our image. Now it's time to dry. If you have a fan and you're using it to dry your screen, make sure that there's no dust on the floor, the least amount as possible to avoid contamination or anything that's gonna clog your screen anymore. Once the screen's washed out, you can have it out in the sun. If anything, it would help cure it more. Be mindful, you don't want you don't want to have any streaking. And notice how much detail I got right here, even on the M and the B. I was able to keep all that detail. Well, I like to throw off any excess water and then just have it out here outside in the sun for a bit. So we'll just place it right here on the outside. Place it at an angle, make sure there's good airflow and it's secure. Place your screen face down. Again, these are the tape marks I was talking about. So we're just gonna tape over that. Painter's tape is so handy. Any kind of visible pinholes that we see, we're just taping over those. It's not going to affect our printing. All right. And I typically like to tape up the sides too, specifically the bottoms, just to avoid ink spilling onto either our paper or our t-shirts or any material that we're printing on. So now that we have our image, then we'll put it in our bench hooks. So there's a variety of bench clamps you can use. They come in a variety of shapes and sizes, and you can get these at some art supply store. You can order them online, and that's what we're gonna be using today. And we'll find the center of our image. So our image is 7, 8. So we're using our T-square to see how wide our image is. So we start here. So at the 7-inch mark, we're just gonna use that as 1. So, or 0, so 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, 4 inches, 5 inches wide. So we'll find our center mark. And will be, all right, we'll say it's at 10 right there. Okay. So we'll clamp down. And then we'll get our tape, and we're gonna make a small template of the paper. So we're using 10 as our center, and then we're gonna move it 1, 2 and a half, and the same way, 1, 2 and a half. So we're using 10 and a half as our center mark. So we'll find that here, so 10 and a half. And we can either put a piece of tape for now, or if we're printing on paper, which is what I prefer to do, is put the paper down that we're using as our guide. So again, we'll get the T-square. We'll set it as flush as possible. And looks like we have, I also use my hands as a unit of measure. So that's 2 fingers there. This is 1 finger here. I'm not sure if you can see the paper through there. Looks like we need to come back and over a little bit. So then we'll take that measurement again. It's like 1 and a half and 1 and a half. So that'll be the guideline for our paper. And it's flush against our T-square, so we know it's gonna be straight. And so now we're gonna make a small template. So we're just gonna put some tape here as a guiding line. Okay, so there we are. And so I'm gonna grab the air dry ink. So here I have a gallon of air dry ink. It's acrylic, it's non-toxic, and it's water soluble. So soap and water is really easy cleanup. This is air dry, so be aware of your environment. If it's too dry, it's gonna dry on your screen, so always have soap and water handy. Be sure to flood your screen to make sure that the ink stays wet. Just kind of wake up the ink a little bit. And then we're gonna put a small bead across right here. I typically like to go a little bit wider than my image. That way I have enough ink. So here, we're going to flood our screen first. So very lightly with pressure, just pull the ink across. This is called flooding the screen. Now, we're gonna do a pulling technique. So again, putting pressure on the table, pushing down and pulling back. Pull the table towards ourselves. Again, we're pulling the table towards ourselves. One more time. Pulling the table towards ourselves. And so when we're done, make sure that we flood the screen to keep it from drying. And there's our image.